Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about a serial killer named Ted Bundy and why he still fascinates us. I mean, I looked at the search results for him. On YouTube he had 90,000. John Wayne Gacy had only I think 70,000, and Jeffrey Dahmer had a little less than that. Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer, had like 16 or something thousand. And what we have here is a lot of people are still fascinated with Ted Bundy. I mean, he sticks with a lot of people who study criminology, and I know a few of them, and a lot of them say he in particular stood out. But let's look at that. Let's examine why. Okay, first off, you didn't have somebody who was just a loser and a loner or something like that. You had a man who was rising to prominence very quickly. And he was a young Republican assistant to the governor and a fairly good law student. That last one will come up as a bit of an interesting point, but will come up to be very interesting later on. But anyway, moving on. Not only that, the victims he chose were not prostitutes. They were women who were going out to be very successful in life. They were college students for the most part. And one of the people he killed, one of the women he killed in, I think it was Colorado, was already a nurse. She graduated. That was the point. He killed people that people cared about. I mean, they weren't, runaways or Well, he supposedly did kill a few hitchhikers, but because he attacked people that were a little higher on the social ladder than, say, a hooker, he really stood out that way. And there's also the fact of the range that he covered. H.H. Holmes, he did most of his killing, well, pretty much all his killing from the hotel. Ted Bundy's not the first prominent person to go ape shit like that. H.H. Holmes killed people from his hotel. John Wayne Gacy killed his victims in his apartment, and John Wayne Gacy did the same thing. Now, the first one, as I mentioned, was a hotel owner. John Wayne Gacy was also pretty prominent in the community as well. He had the whole Gacy parade and the day parade in the Chicago area. And not only that, and also what stands out to us about Ted Bundy is that he went transcontinental. Most serial killers stay within one area. They don't go out. They generally don't move like the way he moved around the way he did. He went to several states, and all the way from where his killing spree began in Washington state, all the way to its ending in Florida. That's a very long wet drive, my friends, a very long drive. Not only that, I guess you could call him a magnificent bastard, because he had a killing spree that went from Washington State, Oregon, Utah, Idaho, Colorado, and then finally to Florida. And what else is interesting about him is that he often didn't just fit one category of serial killers. He didn't have a style. He didn't have like a fixed style per se. Not just like a style that he kept following, like the stereotypical hooker killer who just picks up hookers and then kills them wherever. takes them off wherever and kills them. Nor did he changed his morbus operandi a few times. Like, at the start, he broke into women's houses. He would break into their dorm rooms and kill them, and then drag their bodies off. He did that with his first two victims. His very first victim survived, by the way, but she was all fucked up afterwards. Not surprisingly, physically, she has no memory of the attack, and frankly, it's probably better that she doesn't. But anyway, his second victim, he killed her and dragged her body off out into the wilderness, and they didn't find her remains for about a year. And then he kind of switched tactics. He would walk around pretending to be injured, and this does two things. It makes him look more harmless. It makes him look harmless, and two, it makes him look deserving of sympathy, because these women would help him carry his books and backpack or whatever back to his car, or go help him with his quote-unquote sailboat. And, he would knock them out with a crowbar or a hammer or some shit like that, and then take them off into the woods where he would, and kill them when they regained consciousness. And, unfortunately, it just kind of goes to show that sometimes lending a helping hand can lead it to getting your hand ripped off. It's a sad reality, but that's kind of what it proves. And anyway, there was one case in Colorado. He gets caught in Colorado, and what happens is when he gets caught in Colorado, he gets convicted of trying to kidnap this girl, and named Carol Durage, and he gets sentenced to 1 to 15 years, I think the sentence was, for trying to kidnap her. And then eventually he gets charged with abducting and murdering another woman. I think it was a nurse. She was a nurse. But anyway, what happens is he eventually wants to represent himself, and so, because he had legal training, and he was in the law library. He just notices the window's left open on the hot days. He jumps out and escapes. He gets caught later on, and they move him to a more secure jail. And lo and behold, he escapes again. He goes on a crash diet, loses a bunch of weight, and walks out of the jail to freedom. And he then spends a short while in Chicago. He then gets on a bus with some money. He accumulates some money while he was in jail. He gets on a bus and goes to Chicago before anyone knows he's gone. And he spends the night in a bar there or something on New Year's Eve, I think. And then he goes to Florida. And he is determined never to so much as jaywalk. But does he keep that resolution? Nope. He eventually, it's not long before he goes back to committing burglaries and shoplifting and being a peeping Tom. And within a very short time, he creeps into a sorority, bludgeons 2 women to death, and then bludgeons 2 more nearly to death. He also attacks a fifth woman that night who survives, for a total of 2 killed, 3 seriously injured. And a month later, he kidnaps and kills a 12-year-old girl, and then the police finally catch up with him, and they keep him in a jail this time. The Florida police, they do not want him to escape, and it takes them about 10 days before they finally realize who they have. Anyway, he goes on trial, And here's the amazing part. He represents himself, and he makes a spectacle. You can watch the about a good 50 minutes of the trial, 50 minutes, 50 minutes of the trial on YouTube, and there's some other clips of it there that show the more theatrical parts where he gets angry in court and at the judge, and he's like, the judge is like, if there's any more delay in this course proceeding occasioned by your voluntary acts, we're proceeding without you. And he's all like, since I have been in this county, you don't shake your finger at me, young man. Don't shake your finger at me, young man. And anyway, he does a fantastic job of defending himself. Especially that part where he asks the officer who arrived on the scene, please state with great detail what you saw when you pulled back those covers. And according to one defense attorney who was in the courtroom at the time, there was nobody in that courtroom or watching the TV at that time who thought anything other than this man wanted to relive that event. And that was on the second day of the trial, and he said that even though it went on for a while, the trial, for all intents and for all practical purpose, was over. You know, he said it was that question that sank him. And, you know, he spends about another 11 years, and then he goes on trial for kidnapping and killing 12-year-old Kimberly Leach, his last victim. And he marries his girlfriend in the courtroom, and he gets convicted again, and is subsequently sentenced to death again. And but that's not the end. He gets about 200 love letters a day from women claiming to love him, including nude photos a lot of the time. And it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And it's just a whole circus right up until 1989 when he's finally executed. And there have been a few movies about him, like The Deliberate Stranger, Ted Bundy, the 2011, not 2011, but 2002 film. There's also the Stranger Beside Me, which is based off of a book written by Anne Rule, who worked in a crisis center with Ted Bundy. And she talks about that, and that was made a year later. And there's also Bundy, an American Icon. Some of these movies are really just bad. They're stupid. And, but that's a lot of movies made about this guy. There's 4 movies to be exact. I know that there's probably more, but there might be more, but oh well. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And if you can, leave a donation. It's for a good cause. Peace.